Okay, let's talk about basic business algebra. And probably one of the most basic formulas there is in business is this one right here. And if you don't know what this stands for, I'll go ahead and tell you now. This is the profit. Okay, profit is equal to revenue minus cost. Okay, of course, we want to understand by the definition what is profit, what is revenue, and what is cost. And I'll get into this in a second. But one thing you need to really understand is that in business, okay, there is a lot of mathematics and a lot of algebra. Anytime you're dealing with formulas, okay, by definition, you're dealing with algebra. So, the more algebra you know, the better off you're going to be in modeling business situations, etc. Okay, so a lot of people might say, well, I don't need to know any math to be good in business. I just need to know how to sell something. Yeah, and that's true too. But listen, the more math you know, the better off you're going to be because math is the way we measure things, okay? Math is the way we interpret things. So when you're looking at a chart or you're trying to determine trends, you're doing mathematics, okay? And a lot of that math is algebra. So I'm going to talk about this formula very briefly, just so you can kind of get the basic idea of it. And I'm going to talk about another example of how algebra is used in business type of situations. But the whole really overarching goal of this video is to get you excited about the applications of algebra, whether it's business, science, engineering, doesn't make a difference. As a teacher, I've heard, well, when am I ever going to use this stuff? This is not important. Well, it is, okay? And if you're in business and this kind of caught your eye, we'll take a look at this formula and something else here in a second. But before we get to that, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TabletClass Math. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher, and over several years, I've constructed what I like to believe is one of the best online math help programs there is. Of course, I'll let you be the judge of that. You can find a link to my math help program in the description of this video. But I offer well over 100 plus courses. Of course, the standard courses I have, like algebra, geometry, algebra 2, college algebra, soon pre-calculus. But a lot of what I offer is test preparation courses as well. So whether you need to take the SAT, ACT, GED, a teacher certification exam, college placement exam, etc., anything that's math related, I likely have that course. So you can check out my catalog by just following the link in the description below. But the main thing that I do, that I'm so proud of in my course, and this is why it's taken me years and years to build this, is I really teach you how to solve thousands of different types of problems, okay? The most common problems you're going to have to know in middle school math, high school math, and even basic college level mathematics. Now, if you are in fact a math student right now, I need to give you my golden rule of mathematics, and this has been developed over decades of teaching the subject, and that is this. Those students who take the best math notes almost always have the best math grades, and those students who take no notes because it's just not important to them, or maybe they take notes every other Wednesday, or they take sloppy notes, or they're like, I don't need to take any notes at all because my best friend takes better notes than I do, and I just take their notes to study from. Or, I don't have to pay attention to the math teacher because, I got to do my homework from another class. Listen, I get it. I was a student once. I've done all those things. But guess what? You're going to pay a price in your math education. You have to stay focused. You have to work hard at taking great math notes. It is, I will just tell you the truth right now, to take great math notes does require work, okay? And it is a skill. And that's why a lot of people don't want to put in the work. It kind of seems like an optional thing when you're taking notes. Like, yeah, I got a photographic memory. I'll just remember this stuff. It's not a problem. I don't need to write this stuff down or concentrate. Listen, don't make these mistakes, okay? I've made them, and I've seen countless of students who could have done excellent in mathematics make them. Note taking is critical, so hopefully by this little, pep talk I'm giving you that you're going to do the right thing and start improving your notes. Okay, there's always room for improvement. Okay, so if your notes are good, make them great. If your notes are great, make them the best. Okay, but in the meantime, you need something to study from. So if you want a copy of my notes, I offer detailed, comprehensive notes to include pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and trigonometry. You can check those out by following the links in the description of this video. All right, so let's get into algebra and business, and we'll start with this little basic formula here. Profit equals revenue minus cost. So you might have heard of this term gross profit or net profit? Well, that kind of relates to this little formula here, okay? So we have P equals R minus C. This is algebra. It's algebra because it's an equation, all right? And we're dealing with variables, right? These variables represent numbers. So revenue, okay, revenue would be your gross, kind of like what your gross profit is, all right? So let's say you make, oh, I don't know, like some little widget thing, okay, some little invention that you made. We make these things and you sold 1,000 of them. But let's say you made, oh, I don't know, $25,000 from selling your little widgets. But how much did it cost you to produce these things? Well, maybe you had to spend $15,000 in manufacturing expenses to actually make these things. Okay, so although you sold 25,000, that was your gross revenue. You have some cost associated here, so you got to subtract your cost from your total gross, and 25,000 minus 15,000 would be what? $10,000. $10,000 in profit. Okay, so we call this net profit. But as you and I know, we're not done yet, right, with our bottom line profit. Matter of fact, I might have this a little bit off in your net because something, well, technically your net would be like, you got to take out all your costs, right? So now we have the cost of manufacturing. But what is the other cost that we have here? Oh, yes, everyone's favorite word. That's taxes, right? That's a huge one. Boom. So we got to pay our taxes on our profit. And then finally, you get to keep a little bit of that for yourself, right? But that is a basic relationship in business, okay? Especially in manufacturing. There is a cost where our grand total for what we're making from our sales minus the cost, and now you would say that would be our profit margin. Okay, so there's these words, profit margin. Oh, this business has a high profit margin or a low profit margin. The margin's very small, so it's a 5% margin, which means that hey, maybe you got to spend a lot of money, and your revenue is not that. Let's say you're making $100,000, but it takes you $90,000 to make to all your costs. You made $100,000 in sales. It's not enough, right? To say, oh, I made $100,000. My business makes $100,000. Well, what was the cost? Oh, it was $90,000. So I only really made $10,000, right? So again, you need to have these basic understanding when you're looking, especially if you're like doing any investing or looking at a business yourself. This is a basic formula: P equals R minus C. Now, from an algebraic standpoint, how can we manipulate this little formula? Well, P is equal to R minus C. But if I wanted to know the cost, if I wanted to rewrite this equation in terms of cost, how can I look at this equation here? Okay, in other words, how can I solve for C? Well, I'm like, all right, profit is equal to revenue minus cost. How can I look at this in terms of cost? Well, let's just do this little basic algebraic exercise here. Now, intuitively, almost all of you could figure this out on your own, but if I told you to solve this equation for C, in other words, I want C equals, right? I don't want this as P. Right now, the formula is P equals. I want this as C equals. How do I do that? Well, here's how you can do this, okay? And by the way, if you're struggling with this, I have done more than a few videos on how to solve literal equations or how to solve for the indicator variable. This is a basic kind of algebra skill that you need to know. And if you don't know how to do this right now, don't worry about it. Make a mental note on this, but this is something that, is definitely basic algebra that you do want to know if you're studying this subject. So here I have P is equal to R minus C, and I want to get this C by itself. Okay, so how can I do this? Well, I know that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side of an equation, and the right-hand side is equal to the left-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and write this P equals R minus C this way. R minus C, here, I'll write that a little bit better. R minus C is equal to P. Okay, it's the same thing as P is equal to R minus C because I want to solve for C. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I have to think of the C, all right, which is obviously represents the cost, is the only variable here, okay? So I need to solve for C, so I got to think of R and P as numbers. So if I had a basic equation like 2 minus C equals 8, how would I solve for C? Okay, well, hopefully those of you out there in YouTube land would know I would subtract 2 from both sides of the equation. I'll have negative C is equal to 8 minus 2, which of course is 6. And I have this negative right here. So this would be negative C is equal to 6. Now I got to solve for C. I have negative C, so I got to divide negative 1 by both sides of the equation. I get positive C is equal to negative 6. Okay, so this is basic algebra here, all right? Now, these steps that I'm doing, I have to basically follow these same steps to solve for C here. Okay, so let's just leave those steps right there, and I'm going to show you. Let me scoot this guy over. All right, so I'm thinking of R, and the only thing I'm thinking of as a variable is C. I'm thinking of R and P temporarily as numbers. So I'm going to subtract R from both sides of the equation, just like I'm doing like right here. Okay, so that gives me minus C is equal to P minus R. Okay, so this part right here is kind of equivalent to this, right? But I still got this minus C. So to get this by itself, to get a positive C, I'm going to divide each side of the equation by negative 1. So I get C, positive C is equal to P minus R divided by negative 1. Now here, P minus R divided by negative 1, what does that mean? Well, it changes the sign, right? So I can divide each one of these terms by negative 1, okay? And I get negative P plus R, all right? Negative P plus R. Negative P plus R. So this is probably the most probably the most correct way to kind of express this. So if you take a look here, you have this basic formula. If I said, give me the cost, well, you would say, all right, to get the cost now, I'd have to kind of subtract things. You could probably figure it out just by mentally figuring out the cost given the revenue and the profit by subtracting things away. But from an algebraic standpoint, you can see that we have to kind of manipulate things. Now, believe me when I tell you, you need to know how to work with these variables, right? And so this is an example of solving for a particular variable giving other in a formula. Okay, this is a very, very common task that you have to do, and if you don't know how to do this, you're going to struggle. So this is algebra. This is like fundamental algebra 1, high school level algebra that you would need to know how to do. Okay, now let's take a look at another, and this is just an example of how we use algebra in business, okay, to answer particular questions. Now let's take a look at another scenario. Let's say I have here is like an XY chart. So if those of you out there have studied algebra, we have the y-axis and the x-axis. And if you haven't studied this, well, you can just tell that this is some sort of chart. So here we have the months: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, et cetera. We have so months are going along this axis, the x-axis, and our profit is going in this direction, okay, the y-axis. So let's say in March, okay, that would be month three, we made $2,000, okay, so this would be corresponds to the point 2000. Now, if you recall that you could plot a point on the XY plane as an XY point. We call that an ordered pair. Okay, a pair of values, they have a particular order to them. X first and then Y. Okay, it's a pair, an ordered pair. This is a coordinate and it's a particular point. So here, let's say in March, which is month 3, our profit was 2,000. And then in May, our profit was, May of course is our 5th month, our profit was 4,000. Okay, so we have some sort of trend going on here, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, all right, this is kind of the general trend of our business growth. Okay, so hey, the business seems to be growing, so we would want to do an analysis so maybe we could predict future profits. Okay, so we're given these 2 months. So if we kind of drew a line to there, and if we had some sort of equation that would represent this line, like a y equals mx plus b, all right, then we can have a model, a mathematical model that represents a financial situation. Okay, again, algebra in business. So let's go ahead and actually find the equation of this line, okay, given these 2 points. So if you don't know how to do this, that's not the point of this video. I'm not trying to teach you everything here. But basically what we're trying to do, okay, we have 2 points. I want to find the slope, m, the slope, and then I want to find the equation of this line. Now, if you're interested in really knowing how to do this, outside of this particular example, just take a look at my algebra playlist. I have tons of videos on how to find the slope given 2 points and how to find the equations of a line. But what we're trying to do is find a linear equation that models this kind of scenario, okay? So we can find this line, then we can predict future trends. Now, in real life, this is called regression analysis, okay? And I'm just going to mess up this problem here just for a second, because in real life, you would have more points, right? Maybe your profit would look like this. Maybe the trends would be not as clear, okay? So we'd have, things like this, and this would be an example of a scatter plot, okay? We're trying to find the best fitting line. So what would be the best fitting line here? Well, using this data, maybe if I used this line and this line, and those 2 points, and I drew a line through there, that kind of generally represents the trend that's going on with these other points as well, okay, that basic shape. I wouldn't use, for example, this point and this point, because my line would be, let's say these 2 points, my line would be like this. Okay, that's not the main trend of what's going on here, right? The trend of the points are kind of going in this direction. So what we're kind of doing here, this is a very, very simple distilled down example of linear regression, or finding a linear model that represents this. Okay, so again, yes, is there algebra in business? Yeah, absolutely, there is. Okay, you need to pay attention to your algebra teacher. They're trying to make your life better. Matter of fact, just look at that guy as, hey, the more I learn from them or her, the more I'm going to make, more money I'm going to make, whatever motivates you, right? Whether it's an A plus or $1,000 or $10,000 or maybe $1 million, who knows, right? But this is stuff that's really has real life application in the real world. Believe me on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and determine the slope, okay, given these 2 points, and then we'll figure out the equation to that line. All right, so here's our 2 points. Remember, in month 3 we made 2,000, and in month 5 we made 4,000. Okay, so we want to determine the slope, the rate of change. It's another word, rate of change, which is the slope. Okay, what is the rate of change? In other words, our business is obviously growing. At what rate is it growing? It's changing. Okay, at what rate? All right, that's another fancy word, more technical word to represent the slope of this line. So the slope, by definition, it's a little m that represents slope in algebra. It is the rise over the run. Again, I don't want to turn this into a full-on video about the slope. You can learn a lot about the slope. I have tons of videos on it in my pre-algebra and algebra playlist. So, but anyways, hopefully you understand, note that the slope, by definition, is the rise of the line over its run. For example, here is a line right here. Okay, this is a line. Okay. This is the rise of that line. This is the run of that line. So this little ratio, this rise over the run, tells me the steepness of that line. So what is the rise? Well, we measure the rise by the differences of the y's. So I'm doing algebra here. Now, if you don't really get this, okay, no problem, but just know that I'm doing algebra to solve a business problem here, okay? So that would be 4,000 minus 2,000. This is the change of y's right there. Remember, these are my xy's. So these are my x's. Because I started with this 4,000, I got to start with this 5. So I have 5 minus y, or 5 minus 3, excuse me. That's the change of my x's. Okay, these are my y's. These are my x's. Again, I'm going to get a little quick here, and I'm skipping over really important things about the slope. So make sure you understand the slope. But anyways, we got 4,000 minus 2,000. That's 2,000. 5 minus 3 is 2. So 2,000 divided by 2 is 1,000. So 1,000 is our slope. Okay. All right, so now I still want to find the equation of the line. To find the equation of the line, I need the slope of the line. Okay, I have that now, 1,000. And I need at least one point that's on the line. So this point here, if you recall, month 3, we made 2,000. I could use month 5's information, but I just need 1 point. So I'll use month 3's points, okay? So we know that 2,000 is on that line, and that line has a slope of 1,000. And I can use my trusty friend here, the point slope formula, to find the equation of the line. What am I doing right now? I'm doing a bunch of algebra, okay? So if you don't get this, no problem. I'm just making a point that, hey, yes, algebra is in business, okay? So let's go ahead and find the equation of a line that has a slope of 1,000 and passes through the point 2,000. So I'm going to plug in my 2,000. This is my y, this is my x, and that's my slope. All right, so this is the y that I'm going to plug in, which is 2,000. I have the slope, and here is my x value, which is 3. Again, if you're confused about this, I have tons of videos on how to use the point slope formula. Okay, but the main point here is I am doing algebra. So my y minus 2,000, okay, I'm just plugging in my information, equals m, that's my 1,000 minus, or times x minus 3. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and solve for y. So that's 1,000 minus x, 1,000 minus 3, 1,000x minus 3,000. I'm solving for y. I'm adding 2,000 to both sides of the equation now. I get this, y equals 1,000x minus 1,000. Okay, now how did I get that? Again, review what you need to review. Just kind of relax if you don't get this stuff, because just know that I'm doing algebra. The point is here that algebra is in business. Okay, so but remember my y-axis. Remember on our little chart there, I had months this way. These were the months, which was represented the x-axis, and my y-axis was my dollars, my profit, right? So y is really profit. Okay, so I ended up with the line. Okay, the line, the equation of the line as y equals 1,000x minus 1,000. Okay, but really that y is representing profit. Okay, so instead of putting a y there, I'm going to put p there. So my profit is equal to 1,000 times x was the number of months, or whatever month number that is. So I can put that there as month, what month you're at, minus 1,000. This is a linear model, okay? A linear model that describes our business venture, okay? Our business growth. And of course, it could change and we can make it more accurate, but this is a linear model, and we used algebra to get to this model. Now let's kind of see the value of this model. Well, let's try to predict what our profit would be in July. Okay, how do we do that? Well, what month is July? Well, July is month 7. Okay, that's month 7. So if I plug in month 7 right there, okay, 7 for a month, I get 1,000 times 7 is 7,000, minus that 1,000 is 6,000. Okay, so our profit based upon this trend should be 6,000 in month 7 or in July. And if we go up here, all right, to our little chart, of course we have to really clear this thing up here for a second. It makes sense, right? So let's kind of go back to our original data and just kind of see if we can kind of predict that. So in March, we were at, that was month 3, we're at 2,000. May, which is month 5, we're at 4,000. So we're saying in July, that's June, July we should be at 6,000, and 6,000 should be about right there. It's all in one line, and we know our slope, our rate of change is 1,000. What does that mean? It means that we're increasing our profit by 1,000 each month. Okay, so here, month 6, if I'm going up 1,000 each month, I should be at 5,000. Okay, let me write that a little bit better. I should be at 5,000. And then in month 7, I should be at 6,000. Of course, I sought for that. And so a lot of you out there could have been like, oh, okay, we could have just kind of extrapolated out. We're gaining $1,000 per month. But you know, these are very easy numbers and very easy scenarios. Believe me when I tell you, you're going to want to have a nice linear model built out. But this is real life stuff. Okay, this is not just some like algebra word problem just for the sake of doing algebra. Businesses do this all the time. Okay, and of course, we use things like Excel spreadsheets and other things that are kind of doing some of the number crunching. But your interpretation of this data and information is dependent upon your understanding of algebra. Okay, you need to understand algebra, even if you're not doing the mechanics of solving this stuff. The more algebra you know, the more mathematics you know, the better off you're going to be in business. Okay, you don't have to be doing calculus and stuff. Although there is quite a bit of calculus in business, but you know, again, you need to at least know basic algebra, all right? Because even we could see right here with our formula, P equals R minus C, yeah, we're doing some decent amount of, algebra here that confuses a lot of students, all right? So how do you, how do you handle all this? Like, where should you start? Well, again, it starts with one, taking great math notes. Two, finding the teacher um, that teaches math in a way you like and understand. Okay, hopefully that's me. All right, clear and understandable math. But find someone that you can learn from. Now, if you're in a course that you're, and you, for whatever reason, you're not understanding your teacher, then talk to your teacher. Try to, get as much help as you can from a teacher. But you have options these days. It's not like the old days where, oh, you were just relegated to finding some tutor. Now you can go on YouTube. You could use programs like mine, but you're going to have to take the initiative until you find someone that really is qualified. That's another thing too. Make sure you're learning from someone who really knows what they're talking about. Myself, I've been teaching the subject for years and years and years. I got a degree in mathematics and a master's degree. I like to believe myself as a professional teacher because that's my profession. So, find the math help that you need, but don't just accept not learning this stuff. It's too important. Okay, so if this video in some way benefited you, if you found it some educational value from it, if you enjoyed it, if you liked it, please consider smashing that like button. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing. I've been on YouTube for a long time. It's a perfect platform for someone like myself who's obsessed with teaching math. I have hundreds and hundreds of videos on my channel, basic to advanced math. They're all there for you. Now, if you want my best math help, you know where to go. Just follow those links in the description of this video. But with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.